In the next few minutes, you're about to witness a rescue that proves how a single decision can change the fate of a living creature forever. This is a story about timing, instinct, and the quiet courage it takes to stop when others might simply keep moving. Deep in the wild, where survival follows unforgiving rules, one unexpected encounter between a ranger, a trapped peacock, and a powerful predator would turn an ordinary day into a moment no one present would ever forget. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss more emotional and educational rescue stories like this one. Welcome to another emotional rescue story, one that reminds us how fragile life can be and how compassion often appears in the most unexpected situations. People from all over the world gather here to watch these moments unfold, connected by a shared respect for animals and the natural world. Wherever you are watching from today, imagine standing in a place far removed from cities and crowds, where nature moves at its own pace and every creature depends entirely on instinct to survive. The morning had begun like any other for the wildlife ranger. The sun rose slowly over the landscape, casting long shadows across dusty paths and dense patches of vegetation. His routine patrol followed familiar routes, checking for signs of injured animals, illegal activity, or disturbances within the ecosystem. Most days passed quietly, filled with observation rather than action. In the wild, silence often means balance, a sign that nature is functioning as it should. As the ranger drove along a narrow trail, birds scattered gently from nearby trees, and distant animal calls blended into the background. Nothing seemed unusual at first, yet experienced rangers learned to notice subtle changes, a sudden absence of sound, disturbed ground, or movement that feels out of place. That morning, something felt different. The air carried a strange tension, as if the environment itself was signaling that something was wrong. A faint rustling sound reached his ears, barely noticeable over the engine. At first, he assumed it was wind moving through dry leaves, but the sound came again, sharper this time, followed by a brief, frantic flutter. Instinct urged him to slow down. Many drivers might have continued without thinking twice, but years of experience had taught him that small signs often reveal larger problems. He stopped the vehicle and listened carefully. The wilderness grew unusually quiet, the kind of silence that appears when animals sense danger nearby. Stepping out slowly, he scanned the surrounding area. A few meters away, hidden partially by tall grass and low branches, something moved violently against the ground. As he approached cautiously, the scene came into view and instantly explained the tension in the air. A magnificent peacock, its vibrant feathers tangled and crushed, struggled desperately against the tightening coils of a giant snake. The predator had already wrapped much of its powerful body around the bird, each movement squeezing tighter, following the natural instinct to subdue its prey. The ranger froze for a moment, understanding the gravity of what he was witnessing. In nature, predators hunt to survive, and intervention is never a simple choice. Yet the struggle unfolding before him was intense and immediate. The peacock's wings beat frantically, scattering feathers across the ground, while the snake remained focused, patient, and powerful. Seconds passed that felt much longer. The ranger realized that if he drove away, the outcome was certain. But stopping meant stepping into a dangerous situation, one that required careful judgment and courage. Standing there between instinct and compassion, he faced a decision that would define everything that followed. And in that quiet moment, instead of turning back toward safety, he chose to act, setting into motion a rescue that would soon capture the attention of everyone who later heard this story. The ranger's decision formed almost instantly, yet it carried the weight of years of experience. He knew that every action in the wild has consequences. Predators hunt to survive, and interfering can disrupt nature's balance. But what stood before him was not a distant scene, observed from afar. It was a living struggle happening only steps away, unfolding in real time. The peacock's movements were slowing, its energy fading as the snake's coils tightened with steady precision. He took a careful step forward, keeping his movements slow and controlled. Sudden motion could provoke the snake into striking defensively. The reptile was large, powerful, and fully focused on its prey. Its muscles shifted beneath patterned scales, adjusting pressure with each breath the bird attempted to take. The peacock's once proud feathers dragged against the dust, their brilliant colors dulled by panic and exhaustion. The ranger quickly assessed his surroundings, searching for anything he could use, without placing himself directly in danger. A long branch lay nearby, thick enough to create distance between him and the snake. He picked it up cautiously. Xuan. Never taking his eyes off the scene, his goal was not to harm the predator Xuan, but to interrupt the attack long enough to free the trapped bird. Xuan. He moved closer, positioning himself at an angle where he could reach the snake's outer coils. Xuan. The peacock fluttered weakly at his approach, sensing movement but too exhausted to resist further. Xuan. The snake reacted differently. Its head lifted slightly, tongue flicking through the air. Xuan. Aware now that another presence had entered the encounter. Xuan. For a brief moment, predator and human studied one another, each calculating risk. Xuan. The ranger gently pressed the branch against the snake's body, applying steady pressure. Xuan. The reptile tightened instinctively, attempting to secure its hold. The situation grew tense. Xuan. One wrong move could cause the snake to redirect its attention toward him. Xuan. Still, he remained calm, adjusting the branch carefully, nudging the coils away. Xuan. Seconds stretched into what felt like minutes. Sweat formed along his forehead. Xuan. He spoke softly, not to the animals, but to steady himself, maintaining focus. Xuan. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, one section of the snake's grip loosened. Xuan. The peacock seized the opportunity, struggling weakly, creating just enough movement to shift the balance. Xuan. Encouraged, the ranger applied slightly more pressure with the branch, guiding the snake's body away without striking it. Finally, a gap opened wide enough for the peacock to pull one wing free. The bird collapsed briefly onto the ground, breathing heavily. The snake slowly retreated, sliding back through the grass, choosing distance over confrontation. The ranger stepped backward. The silence that followed felt almost unreal. The ranger lowered the branch, his attention shifting immediately to the peacock. Up close, he could see signs of strain. Ruffled feathers, shallow breathing, and weakness caused by the crushing pressure. Kneeling carefully, he observed without touching, giving the animal space to calm down. The peacock's eyes blinked slowly. He understood that the hardest part of the rescue was only beginning, because saving a life in the wild often requires patience. After a moment, the bird tried to stand. Its legs shook under its weight, and it stumbled forward before collapsing again. The ranger immediately understood that the peacock could not yet escape on its own. Leaving it there would expose it to predators. He carefully removed his field jacket and gently placed it over the bird, creating shade and a sense of security. Moving slowly, he slid his hands beneath the peacock, supporting its body. Its long tail feathers trailed downward as he carried it. At the truck, he prepared a safe space with a soft blanket and water. He placed the peacock down carefully. The bird remained still, processing its rescue. Relief began to replace tension, though he knew recovery would take time. The ranger contacted a nearby wildlife rehabilitation center, explaining the situation and requesting guidance. He glanced toward the grass where the snake had disappeared. There was no anger. The predator had only followed instinct. The engine started gently, and the vehicle began moving. The ranger drove carefully, aware that the journey was part of the healing. Sometimes the smallest pause in an ordinary day can become the reason another life continues. The ranger moved steadily along the trail, the rescued peacock resting quietly in the back of the truck. Every small bump in the road mattered now. The bird shifted slightly as awareness gradually returned. Moments like this allowed for reflection, the thin line between life and loss in the wild. Arriving at the rehabilitation center, 2 staff members approached with practiced calm. They carefully transferred the bird, ensuring as little stress as possible during the move. Inside, the team checked for injuries. Fortunately, no fractures were found, though the bird needed rest. The peacock was placed in a quiet enclosure. Seeing it safe brought a quiet sense of relief. Recovery depends on the next few hours, but today a life was saved. Before leaving, he spoke briefly with the rehabilitation staff, who promised to monitor the bird closely and provide updates. Their goal, like his, was simple: return the animal to the wild as soon as it regained full strength. Wildlife rescue was never meant to create dependency, only to offer support when survival alone became impossible. As the ranger stepped outside, the sounds of the reserve returned. Distant birds calling and wind moving through trees. The steady rhythm of nature continued unchanged. The sun now stood high overhead, marking the time past. He paused beside his vehicle, reflecting on how easily the day could have unfolded differently. Had he ignored the noise or chosen not to stop, the outcome would have remained unseen. Instead, one decision had altered the path of a living creature. What he did not yet know was that the story was far from finished. The peacock's recovery would bring an unexpected outcome, a reminder that compassion can ripple far beyond the moment. Inside, the peacock stood quietly beneath soft lighting, its posture slightly stronger than before. The staff had placed fresh water and food nearby, allowing the bird to regain energy at its own pace. Watching it breathe calmly brought a sense of quiet satisfaction, relief that the decision to stop had made a difference. Over the next several hours, the rehabilitation team monitored the peacock carefully. Wildlife recovery is rarely immediate. The veterinarian checked its breathing and balance repeatedly, looking for signs of internal injury. Fortunately, as time passed, the bird's condition improved. Its feathers slowly lifted back into their natural form. By the following morning, the peacock walked cautiously around the enclosure, testing its strength. The staff played recordings of wind and environmental noise to prepare the peacock for its release. The ranger received an update call early that day. Hearing that the bird was recovering well brought a smile to his face. Knowing that this one had a real chance to return to the wild made the long hours worthwhile. Without hesitation, he agreed to assist with the release once the team confirmed the peacock was ready. 2 days later, the rehabilitation staff determined that the bird had regained enough strength to be returned to its natural habitat. The release location was chosen carefully, close to where it had been found, but far enough from the snake's territory to reduce immediate risk. Early morning was selected as the ideal time, when temperatures were cooler and predator activity remained lower. The ranger arrived just before sunrise. A soft golden light stretched across the landscape, creating a peaceful atmosphere. The transport crate was placed gently on the ground, facing open terrain filled with tall grass and scattered trees. Everyone stepped back, giving the bird space and minimizing human presence. For a moment, nothing happened. The door of the crate remained open, yet the peacock stayed inside, observing the environment. After days in recovery, the return to freedom required adjustment. Slowly, it stepped forward, placing one foot onto the earth, then another. The morning air carried familiar scents, and the bird lifted its head higher, recognizing the world it belonged to. Within seconds, its posture changed completely. The peacock stretched its wings wide, testing strength and balance. Sunlight caught its feathers, restoring their brilliant colors. Blues and greens shimmering as if untouched by the struggle it had survived. It took a few cautious steps, then moved farther into the grass, gaining confidence with each motion. Before disappearing fully, the peacock paused and turned slightly, its body angled toward the group, watching from a distance. It was likely simple awareness rather than intention, yet the moment felt meaningful. Then, with a sudden burst of movement, it walked swiftly into the vegetation and vanished back into the wild. The team remained silent for several seconds, allowing the natural sounds of the environment to return. Releases are often quiet events, marked not by celebration but by respect. The goal of every rescue is not to keep animals safe forever, but to give them another chance to live freely. As they packed the empty crate and prepared to leave, the ranger reflected on how ordinary the day had seemed when it began. A routine patrol had turned into a life-saving decision simply because he chose to listen to a faint sound and stop. The experience reinforced something he had learned many times before. Compassion often begins with attention. Yet even as the rescue concluded successfully, its impact lingered. The story would later spread, serving as a reminder that small actions, taken at the right moment, can carry lasting consequences. And while the wilderness continued unchanged, somewhere within it, a peacock moved freely once again, alive because one person decided not to drive past. The ranger watched until the peacock disappeared into the grass. Wildlife rescues rarely come with certainty, but this time patience and timing aligned perfectly. Driving back, he reflected on how easily the moment could have been missed. Awareness is often the difference between witnessing life and saving it. Every animal plays a role in the ecosystem. This rescue wasn't about interference, but about allowing another outcome to exist. Compassion in conservation isn't loud or dramatic. It is the quiet decision to pause, observe, and act responsibly when it matters most. Somewhere among those birds is one that returned to life because someone chose to help. Stories like this remind us that respect begins with empathy. Conservation is built from small decisions made by individuals who choose responsibility over indifference. Choose to care for the world around you.